What's up, guys? It's downtown Josh Brown. I'm here with Michael Batnick as always. It's Tuesday, so we're going to play our favorite game. What are your thoughts? Michael doesn't know what I'm going to ask him about. I don't know what he's going to ask me about. Stick around. Let's see what's happening. Okay, first of all, love the shirt, Michael. I still believe too. I don't know why. These days, I'd be happy for any basketball. I want to ask you about something that you wrote about. The top five stocks in the United States are now bigger within the S&P 500 than they've been since the 1970s. You have a couple of charts, one of which is a horrendous chart crime. We'll throw this one up, showing that the five largest stocks in the S&P 500 are now as big as the bottom 350. And you've done this before, and they get bigger and bigger, and the rest of the index gets smaller and smaller. What are we to make of this situation? Because didn't everyone say, wait till a bear market and those big stocks would get slaughtered? Now it's the opposite.
Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple are still all above $1 trillion, believe it or not.
Right. This isn't what was supposed to happen. We had a bear market. These were supposed to be the stocks that got killed the most. No?
So I was thinking about this. Things that seem unsustainable are both the best and the worst investments. Like betting against things that seem unsustainable. The housing market, for example, in 07, 09 turned out to be the best investment ever for certain people that were able to execute it. Obviously, it wasn't easy because it went on for a long time. And that's the nature of things that seem unsustainable, is that they continue to go on. They're also the worst investments. Imagine betting against tech from that chart that I threw up in 2000. That was July 2018. And that was already very late in the cycle of the FANG stocks.
You say imagine betting against tech. That's like there's trillions of dollars de facto betting against tech when they're overweighting the rest of the market and underweighting tech as a smart beta strategy. Like they're not saying, I want to bet against tech, but they are.
But implicitly or explicitly, that's what they're doing by not being in line with the tech stocks. And this is not the indexes. There was an article in Barron's maybe 2 years ago. Active managers are what set prices, and active managers were actually overweight relative to the benchmark, these stocks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at a certain point, I feel like active managers had to be overweight these stocks because of how much they had been outperforming by.
Well, if you're a value manager, you can't really do that.
So here's what's interesting. There are a lot of value benchmarks and indices that had stocks like Microsoft and Apple in them for almost the entire run up.
Never would own Amazon. Never would own Amazon. Although remember there was an article, there was a quote like Amazon is now a value stock, and we scoffed up. This is the top. Well, guess what? It wasn't. Not even close.
Okay, so James McIntosh at the Journal is saying Microsoft is now worth as much as the FTSE 100.
Close.
Which is the biggest stocks in London.
The gap is closing, and this does seem unsustainable. I mean, this is crazy.
Wait, and the top five stocks are now worth as much as the entire or almost the entire developed world stock markets ex-US. Is that true? How could that be?
It's true. And think about what those stocks are. So these are the top holdings in that index. It's all of the developed markets outside of the United States, 22 of the 23 developed market countries. Nestle.
So it's Europe and Japan and Hong Kong. Basically.
Roche, Holdings, Novartis, Toyota, AstraZeneca, HSBC, ASML, SAP, AIA Group, and Novo Nordisk. So these are giants.
Wait, so we have five companies that are worth all of those combined.
No. Those are just the top 10. Those are just the top 10 holdings.
But all of those combined plus everything else.
Plus another 1,002 stocks with a median market cap of $5 billion.
All right, let me say one thing about this. If you were to tell me that any one of these giant five companies only does one thing, I would say, we just make cars. I would say, okay, that doesn't make any sense. But they're all conglomerates. They all do many, many, many things. Amazon does everything from enable the conversation you and I are having right now in its cloud to bringing groceries to people and very soon medicine. And it's not like it's one company in one very narrow industry.
Yeah,
I can go through the rest of that list too.
There's reasons why this happened, but this is another manifestation of the winner take all economy. This is at the corporate level, not at the individual level.
Right. Okay. What do you got?
You wrote a post recently about credit card delinquencies and how you're worried about that might be the next wave.
Yep.
Explain.
Well, everyone's worried about it. This is not like my unique insight, because if you listen to any of the large bank conference calls last week when they reported earnings, all of them are now raising their loan loss reserves. Banks start raising their loan loss reserves in anticipation of having to take major charges. And you take major charges when basically you've lent money to people that stop paying, can't pay, will maybe pay later. So some of it is accounting, but the reality is, and this is the main point I was trying to make, if you're someone who's lost your job, as 22 million Americans have in the last 4 weeks, what is the easiest thing to stop paying? You're probably going to continue to pay for your phone, because that's like literally your only lifeline to the outside world. And it's what you spend most of your day doing is things on your phone. You're definitely going to keep paying for your car for as long as you can, because you'll never be able to drive to a job interview again if you don't have one, outside of, let's say, New York City. And the credit card bill, it's like, you know what? I don't have the $1,500 for it this month. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not paying it. Let them call me. Let them harass me. I can't pay it. So there's a thing called Maslow's hierarchy. It's like what do people need first? Food, shelter, and then so I just think about like this hierarchy of debt payment, and I feel like credit cards are just going to get absolutely nailed in this crisis. Now there are people saying, tough shit. You're charging me 21% APR with interest rates at 0. You deserve what's coming. I understand that. But I look at American Express. I look at Discover. I look at Capital One. These are 3 credit card issuers that are on the hook for their customers' purchases. And we'll see what happens.
There was a stat, 8% of customers pay for 75% of bank overdraft fees. And I imagine something similar applies to who pays credit card interest.
Wait, the 8% are like the delinquent payers that run up all the charges and owe them back?
8% of people, when they go to get money, 8% of the people account for 75% of all overdraft fees.
Oh, I think 8% sounds low. I would have guessed that would have been higher then. Well, I think the other thing, in addition to all of these delinquent credit card balances that are going to exist, the other shoe that's dropping at the same time is nobody spending any money on anything. Like outside of a supermarket and maybe some takeout meals, which we'll get to later, people aren't buying gas, which was a very reliable thing that credit card companies made money from. They're not taking trips. So I feel like credit card issuers acutely feel every ounce of the pain that's happening in the economy right now.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk to you about oil.
Whoa. Slow your roll. Here's my turn. Cooking versus takeout.
Sorry, I got excited there.
Cooking versus takeout. So I noticed this weekend, we live in the same town. I don't know if you noticed the same thing. I noticed more and more people sitting in the parking lots of restaurants and delis and bagel stores and pizzerias now bringing food home. Whereas like for the first month of this, I knew a lot of people who were like, I would never get anything other than from a package at a supermarket. So I feel like people are starting to loosen up, and maybe that's going to help a lot of these places. What do you think? Are you doing the same thing?
We are getting a ton of delivery, and we're mostly cooking. So like we got La Piazza the other night.
Right.
Robin said it was crazy, so backs up your point. Although that was Friday after Passover, so maybe that was the issue. I don't know. You would know better than I.
Yeah. So you're mostly like most of your meals are still you in the kitchen cooking, or Robin cooking?
No, I cook. So I'm doing the cooking, and we order in on the weekends.
I'm cooking a lot too.
I get delivery though.
I'm so sick of it.
I get delivery.
You get delivery groceries?
No, and when I'm ordering in, like I don't drive to go get it.
Okay, gotcha. So and they just leave it outside your front door. You leave a tip on the phone with them, I hope, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that there are some places in town doing really good business right now, and maybe getting more takeout orders than they ever have before.
No, it's interesting.
I'm not suggesting.
Robin said that Town Bagel is now selling like Lysol wipes and home cleaning supplies.
Yeah, dude, you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got?
Okay, I want to talk about oil, energy, and I mean, I have no idea what's going on.
Why is something going on with oil this week?
Specifically USO, and so USO assets like absolutely are exploding.
Back up. Let's tell people what USO is.
So USO is the ETF that is trying to track the spot price of oil, and it can't because nothing can. But
right, of course, it never has. By the way,
and they've been very clear about that. It's not like they were like duping people. But if you look at this chart that we'll throw up, assets went from a low of about 1 billion, like I don't know, a few weeks ago, up to 3 billion. So the price has crashed and the assets are going parabolic. And you look on, Nate Garassi tweeted a chart of Robinhood users that are like buying this up like crazy. And when you talk about the dumb money that people like to throw around with retail money, I don't think it's like the average person. I think it's the average retail trader.
Part of me feels like that's true, but I guess I wonder, like, why are people doing this? Do they think like oil is like at a dip, buy the dip?
No,
like,
it's very
mentality.
It's very simple. You have to say to yourself, or this is what the people said to themselves: well, oil can't go to zero. It went negative. Like, and I don't understand the mechanics of the oil market. I don't even know what that means, but it's very simple. You think oil can't go negative?
Well, here you go. The problem with all of these ETFs that back commodities is the roll. So they have futures for 1 month, and the month is coming to an end. The options and futures expire, and they have to then go out and roll into a new contract. And all the professional traders this is going on for more than 10 years, have learned how to game these rolls, which is a direct cost to these products.
So these ETFs, this ETF has to be moving the market. I think they own 30% of all May contracts. Is that right?
That's what I read, the same thing that you read. If that's true, then they can have an outsized impact on short-term price movements for the commodity.
That article that you shared speculated that the exchanges need to shut this product down because it's a systemic risk, which is wild.
Yeah, well, Balchunas just tweeted breaking news that they're gonna halt creations. Creations is like how when new people are putting new money into an ETF, creation mechanism is how they make new shares to satisfy that demand. They're going to stop. So it sounds like they're not going to let any new money come in while this situation. Look, nobody should be doing this.
But wait, if there's no new shares created, is this thing going to be like a closed-end fund where it's going to trade at extreme premiums and discounts?
I don't know. When I hear people like trading these things, my attitude is always, can you just fucking stop? What do you do? Like, what do you know? Do you know more than like people that talk to the sultans and the king of Saudi Arabia? Like, what are you doing?
Right, counterpoint.
That's number one. And number two, the construction of these products is inherently flawed. They're not meant to ape the long-term price move of oil. It's like a day trading vehicle to begin with. Mm-hmm. So you have a view on oil that's 24 hours long. Are you high?
All right, counterpoint. It's fun. And so if people are just gambling with a few dollars, let them live.
Fine. Okay, I have no problem.
I'm sure there's some lunatics that are doing.
There's $4 billion in this thing. You think that's all gamblers?
Yes.
Get out of here.
I think there's some people being very irresponsible, taking too big of a position, but I think by and large, it's people that are just having fun.
So our attitude in terms of people ask us all the time and ask our advisors when we do presentations on our portfolios, do you own commodities? And the answer is yes, through the equities. And if there's a big commodity boom, that will be reflected in the stock market. Because look, in the mid-2000s, oil companies were almost 20% of the S&P. And people were making a fortune in natural gas and oil. So a stock portfolio reflected that. You didn't need to take physical delivery of barrels of oil to get exposure, and you didn't need to screw around with futures contracts. So the same could be said for gold. Like if there's a boom and if gold goes to 5,000, think about it. There are probably 50 publicly traded gold equities that could become large weights in the S&P.
Gold's different.
Everything's different. I'm just making the point that commodity booms end up being reflected, steel, whatever you want to say, end up being reflected in the stock market. So
sometimes
you de facto will have exposure. All right, I'm done with that. Civil unrest. I don't think that there are these mass protests that the media, and I blame like the liberal media for pumping this thing up actually. So they're showing like these guys with I don't know anything about guns. They look like really serious guns standing on the steps of city halls in places like Harrisburg and in Detroit, and having these protests about having to stay in, and they want the economy to reopen. I think there's like 15 people, and the news makes it look like it's thousands of people, and it really just isn't. And I'm going to say something that is actually surprising to me. I want to hear what you think. I actually think these protesters, while they're obviously going to kill themselves and it's not smart what they want, they do have a point. Like,
Wait, what do you mean they're obviously
so
going to kill
here,
themselves?
well, if they run around without masks and just like go back to the way things were, they're going to get sick,
Oh.
or they're going to make other people sick. But here's what I want to ask you: what if the government said, what if Trump is the opposite of this, but what if he took this line and he said, you know what, the economy shut down till December? Would you listen? Would you just stay home? Like, we just do whatever they tell you, no matter what?
Me,
Yeah, you. Who else am I doing the show with? Would you listen? They said 8 more months of this. You stay home till the end of the year. Would you just be like, okay, that's what they said?
well, no, because you're going to listen to other sources of information. Like if the virus just dries up and they're like too bad, I don't think I would listen, and I don't think the country would listen.
Right, but how do you determine if the virus dried up? How do you determine, okay, now it's safe, absent either the governor of your state or the White House? Like
Data.
what? But what are you qualified to decide which data is important to listen to and which isn't? I'm not.
If everybody agrees that there have been 0 new cases over the last 30 days, I would listen to that.
0 new cases. What about like a sustained low level of new cases every day? Because that's what it looks like New York State is headed for.
I
Meaning,
think at some point there is an entire cohort of the nation, particularly those on the lower income scale, that are not going to listen. Doesn't matter what.
so that's what okay. So I agree with you. And then when do you join them?
Well,
like,
we're the lucky ones. Like, we're in a position to stay home indefinitely. It doesn't really affect our financial lives all that much. So
right.
it doesn't affect us. But for a lot of the country, they don't have that luxury of staying home and not earning a living.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. And so that's why when I see these news reports of like people that are angry that they have to stay home, my gut instinct is to be like, haha, they don't know science. That's not really what's going on. These people are in massive economic pain, and I am now coming around to this idea that not that they're right, but that we need to pay more attention to the frustration.
Yeah,
So,
and
all
that's
right.
why Congress needs to do a lot more on the fiscal side to get these people to the future.
Testing side.
Okay, that too.
Testing side.
All right.
All right, what do you got?
What are you doing? Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
like,
Specifically?
like when the kids go to sleep, or I don't know. My kids go to sleep early, so I like have a whole night. But like, what are you doing on your downtime, for lack of a better word?
Well, the weather sucks. So ordinarily, what I would be doing is sitting outside or riding my bike. But it's like 40 degrees every day, windy, and then a little bit of rain.
So like, what
So
are you
that's out.
watching? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, I'm reading big books, like 700-page books. I'm reading novels. I'm reading escapist stuff. I'm not reading about the stock market. I'm not reading about economic history. Like, it's enough already.
My reading is in a
So-
my reading is in a bear market, big time.
Oh, so my reading is finally in a bull market because I'm not as busy in like physical encounters with people. So I have meetings, I have phone calls all day, schedule a ton of stuff, talk to clients, talk to our advisors.
But I mean for entertainment. Do you watching any TV?
Yeah, I plowed my way through like Narcos Mexico is one of my favorite shows of this year, season 2. It's amazing. So I'm probably like watching the same stuff everyone else is. Tiger King. I mean, what else? There's no sports. I want them to bring back baseball, but there's nothing. So I'm rewatching movies. You know what I watched yesterday? I watched The Last Emperor. You ever see that?
No.
Ridiculous. I saw it when I was 10 years old and then never thought about it again. It's a true story. It's Bernardo Bertolucci. It won like 10 Oscars. It's like mind-blowingly good. So I'm like trying to watch stuff like that. That totally just takes me away from the news. Let me pivot to this. This is the last thing. The Last Dance. Did you watch the first 2 episodes yet?
Yes, I did.
Do you feel that? Like younger generations are gonna see this stuff and be excited by it? Because I watched it with my son and he fell asleep twice.
Yeah, but he's so young.
He's 10 and he plays basketball on a travel team. I feel like I don't know. He's sitting there the whole time being like, LeBron's better. I'm like, you're missing the point. There would be no LeBron.
It's
The Pippen stuff was kind of interesting.
So the documentary that I've seen the most is the Dream Team one, and I feel like this is going to be the next one that it's going to be on NBA TV over and over and over. And this is one of the bright spots of the quarantine for me. So I've been watching so much NBA TV and old Knicks games and stuff because that was like my heyday. And the 92-93 Knicks Bulls with Xavier McDaniel was like just a little bit before my time. So I remember the Charles Smith game the next year, but I was 7 and 8 years old. So this is like nostalgia overload for me. So I listened to.
Are you fast forwarding through this stuff, or are you like watching it like it's a live game?
No, I just have it on in the background. So like Zach Lowe did a podcast with Jeff Van Gundy and Patrick Ewing, and one with Jackie McMullen, and one with Steve Kerr. I'm sorry. No, Woj did one with Patrick Ewing and Jeff Van Gundy. This is so great. Zach Lowe did one with Mike Breen. So this is fantastic for me. I'm all over it.
So you have time now to watch these old games.
Yeah, last night on ESPN they were running a game of the Colts versus the Patriots, and it was John Madden and Al Michaels in the booth. Like you'll never see that again. They showed Aaron Rodgers his first game against when Brett Favre returned on the Vikings. Like these are games that you would never have watched ever. So I think that this is like the one silver lining for me on the sports side is I'm loving this.
They probably thought that content would never really have value again. They never thought that they would actually need it. Like they use clips of it for documentaries, but now they have these entire games they can reshow, and there's an audience for it.
I mean, I think I'm saying the obvious, but with Jordan, like there was no moments of weakness. Like he lost that first year, he came back to the Magic, but whatever. Besides for that, there are no blemishes on his record. Like there was never a doubt, ever, that he was just going to win always. And for young people, take a look at his layup highlight package. It's just he could fly like nobody else, and it's just his will to win was like nothing we've ever seen before.
I was totally unaware of this whole storyline with Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson and that triangle of envy. I was like somewhat aware, but like not really the details about Jordan versus his team. And so all the stuff with LeBron now, like we've seen this before, like we've seen teams have to get things done for the superstar.
Well,
to stay.
now
So
it's the opposite because now the players have all the power. Back then, the fact that Reinsdorf was okay with Jerry Krause behaving that way. It's like you have the best player in the world. What are you doing? Alienating your players. It was totally bizarre.
They wouldn't other than on the Knicks. None of that would happen now at any NBA team with a superstar.
Right.
So, all right, listen. Let us know what your thoughts are on these topics, guys. We love your feedback. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Go ahead and give us a like, and we will see you very soon.